Hi, I'm Ratrod Ray, and I'm here with Brian, and we are working on his 1966 Ford F100 pickup. The F100 pickup had the twin I-beam suspension, but we're going to modernize it with the 2003 Crown Victoria front clip. Here you can see the 66 Ford pickup that we went ahead and stripped the front end off, and we're getting ready to butcher up this twin I-beam suspension in this truck. And right over here you'll see the Crown Victoria. 2003 and later had this one-piece cross member that was aluminum. It has your power steering, disc brakes, and it's all one piece, so it's all included in one nice tight package. This one happens to be a police version. We bought a 2003 Crown Vic police car that somebody had slid into a tree with and got all the parts off of it. So we have the front end, we have the 8.8 rear end with the disc brakes, and we also have the transmission, which you can see here, and the 4.6 mod motor that has the aluminum heads, and it's 225 horsepower. How long have you had this truck, Brian?
About 3 years. It's been a good truck, just not a lot of power, and I wanted upgrades, so we decided to buy the Crown Victoria Police Interceptor.
Well, it's a pretty common fit to retrofit this, and it just happens to be that these alignment pins that you'll see here actually line up to the same as the center rail on the frame. So what we're going to do is we're going to cross brace this front here, which I'll show you in a little while. We'll weld a piece on there so that when we cut this whole front end out, it doesn't just move the rails at all. Step. Now that we have the wheels off the vehicle, we made a plumb bob line. I just happened to use a couple of trailer balls and a piece of string. And what we're doing is we're taking a reference line for the center line of the front axle. This one happens to be 18 inches from the firewall, as you can see here. And then also from the hole that's at the very front for the bumper where it comes back, it's at 29.5. So that's our reference mark on both sides, from the firewall and from the frame horns all the way back. So we're going to mark that, and that'll be where it's going to be. Here's Brian as he's trying to pull the double I-beam suspension out of the vehicle. It's a very big bolt. It's been in there for a long time, so it takes a little bit of finessing. Here's the last trailing arm for the front end that Brian's working on, taking the bolt off, and then this whole front end will basically just slide off the truck. So 1966, how hard has it been to take the front end out of this?
Not very hard at all. A lot easier than that 2003 Crown Victoria, that's for darn sure.
Well, a lot simpler to say that.
Yeah.
So I'm at the point where we're trying to get the brake part off, and as you can see here that this flexible hose actually has a factory rivet. So at this point, the best thing to do is to go ahead and take this rivet off from back here. So I'm going to just use the plasma cutter, pop this rivet off. And that bracket will pop right off. Well, we got our suspension out, and now we're just working on the cross member. As you can see in here, Brian's digging away at this bolt that comes up through the bottom of that. So we just plasma cutted some access holes to get in there to get this cross member out. There's a lot of rivets that are riveted in to hold this front end together, so you got to get every one of those out to be able to get this frame rails clean. And we got our location marked here in the center. We used Sharpie and a scratch-all on both sides, so we know we can put our locator pins in straight below that and get our other front end in. So we're going to be working on that as we continue on. At this portion in the video, you can see here that we had plasma cutted the cross member out, and we made sure that we welded in a piece of angle iron in the very front to keep the frame horns from spreading. That way it has the same dimensions it had before with the original cross member. It's quite a bit of work getting all these rivets out, as you can see here in the video. It took a couple hours to actually get that thing fully apart. So we're going to go ahead and dress up the edges here, like you see here. Get those all cleaned up, and then get on to putting in the Crown Vic front suspension. Here's our first mock-up of the front end in the same location as where we had the old front end. As you can see here, there's a couple alignment pins, and they need to line up with that line that we have there, so we're going to have to put a hole in there where our line is. There's one there and there's one over here on this side, so we're going to go ahead and pop those holes in and then pull this thing up tight and see how it fits, and then make our other holes from there. And you can see where I cut the holes out for the alignment pin, and the pin sitting up there. So that gives you the spot where you're going to have to put your holes now. And this is the new ride height of the truck, which is a lot better than the old four-wheel drive style setup that it seemed like it had for 1966. Okay, what I'm doing now is I've got the stock risers from the Crown Vic frame. It's got these tubes in here that has the nut that's encapsulated in the frame, so I'm going to plasma cut these things out, and then we're going to put them on the grinder and clean them off, and then we're going to pop a hole in the top end of this frame, run them down in there, and then we'll re-weld them in. Brian's over here, he's grinding on these tubes here, and he's going to show you how you just clean them off. Okay, so what I did now, this is our alignment pin hole. This is my back hole and the front hole for the whole cradle. So the cradle's going to sit up in there. Okay, here's our top section where we drilled some holes out. These are the stock tubes that came with the Crown Vic. We just cut them off of the old frame. And these things will just drop right down in here, like such. And then they sit in here, so the bolts come in from the bottom. So you can see here where the tube is, and then this will get welded up in here. As the bolt comes through, everything's tight. Now here's what the bolts look like once we get the tubes in there. You can take a look here and see how they sit down there nice and flush. And so we're going to suck these up to where they're tight. Here they are all welded in. I put a weld at the top, and I also put a weld at the bottom, just to add some strength to it and to keep it from turning. So it ends up becoming a structural part. And then tomorrow we're going to box this, which will give some more strength. So here's the truck now, the new ride height with the Crown Vic setup installed. As you can see now, it's more of a street truck than it is an old farm truck. Here's the sway bar for the front suspension, and I cut a little couple slots for it so that the bolts will come up, and we'll tighten that up with some washers and some bolts, and then the front sway bar will be hooked up. And then all we have to do is come back here and make plates for this back here where it comes off. And that's the rear support for the front end. Well, here's our first test fit of the 4.6, and the transmission and everything fit really good in the engine compartment. And there's two bolts that drop right down through the center of this cross member. So it's a pretty good fit. Here's the gusset that we made for the back of the front end here, and this will stiffen up the back where it bolts up to the bottom of the frame. So now all we have to do is hook up the brake line and then the ABS on each side. We're good to go. We stripped all the stuff off the 8.8. It's a 327 posi, and we put it in here, and we reversed the fitment of the U-joints and the leaf springs. So we actually flipped the axle up on top of the leaf springs instead of down below like it is, so it gives it better ride height. And then we're going to C-channel the frame right there where the rear end comes up, so it has clearance for suspension travel. And then we'll end up boxing the frame on the inside.